Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 release Humane. It's a Shudder exclusive and it's coming to Shudder on Friday, July 26th. This is a no spoiler review, although at the very end I'm going to talk about some thematic things, but I will give people a warning before I decide to do that, because if you think that kind of thematic stuff will ruin things too much for you, you can just kind of drop off. But anyway, let's get into it. Humane, directed by Caitlin Cronenberg. Yes, the daughter of David Cronenberg and sister of Brandon Cronenberg. She did direct The Death of David Cronenberg, which is an interesting short film that I think people should kind of check out. Written by Michael Sparaga, who wrote Sidekick, Servitude, and United We Fan. Don't know any of those films. It has Jay Baruchel in it. For anyone who likes Jay Baruchel, I do. He was in, just an example, This Is the End. It has Emily Hampshire in it, who is in Schitt's Creek, which most people know her from that. And Peter Gallagher, one of the movies that I think is underrated from the 90s, House on Haunted Hill. He's really awesome. And also, briefly, David Cronenberg. So, yeah, there you go. So, once again, Shudder exclusive coming Friday, July 26th. Quick synopsis of this film. It is about this kind of dystopian future where there's been this ecological collapse that is forcing things to be changed in the United States. Or it doesn't specifically say what country it is, but it plays very much to United States. And I did read an interview with Caitlin Cronenberg about this film in Rue Morgue magazine that was saying that she kind of did mainly envision the United States, but it could kind of apply to Canada as well. But yeah, it feels very United States to me. But anyway, so it's a situation where, since things have changed, people have to get more serious about how much people are allowed to have, and the population needs to come down. So they have done this humane thing of allowing people to enlist, which means they basically enlist to be euthanized. Is what it is. So it focuses on one specific family. Peter Gallagher's character is the head of this family, and he's getting all his children together for a final meal to kind of let them know, hey, guess what? I'm enlisting. And there's chaos that kind of ensues from that, and it's a horror film. So, yeah, things go downhill, obviously. And that's as much as I'm going to give you, because I don't really want to give anything away. So it does start with light, fun music, but it becomes clear that that's basically at odds with the actual situation in the film. They do a pretty good job of setting up what the kind of world situation is and how the rules kind of apply pretty quickly within it. The score has a lot of kind of ethereal feel at times, which kind of creates this weird, like, kind of surreal atmosphere, which I like. I like that type of stuff. I think for the most part, the score was pretty good, and it didn't seem to be overused too much. They never cranked it way too much or beat you over the head with it, so I really do appreciate that. I will also say, from like a technical standpoint, Caitlin Cronenberg did a good job with the directing, I think, and I think cinematography-wise, it looks really great. One of the things I was reading about in that interview with her with Rue Morgue magazine was that they were saying that she comes from a photography background, and that you can kind of really see that in the film, because a lot of the shots really aren't moving much. There isn't like a ton of like camera movement going on, which I do really like, a lot of camera movement, but it was also kind of nice at times to be able to be more stationary with a film like this. So I think that her style is very interesting. It's not going to engage everyone the same, but I liked it. It seemed to kind of calm the scenes down a little bit, which is interesting, because they're like, some chaotic, violent scenes, but then like the kind of the calm camera work is standing like in opposition to what's going on screen, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I found it different, and I liked that about it, because there's tons and tons and tons of camera movement in films nowadays, sometimes overly so. The characters are pretty decently established and given some depth early on. The problem is, not a whole lot goes on with the characters after that. They do a great job of setting them up, being like, okay, this is who this person is. Here are some core things about them. So you kind of know a little bit about them. Maybe you start to feel a certain way about them. But then as the film goes, there isn't a whole lot of character progression or character development. And that starts to feel like you're getting cheated. Like there should have been a little something more there. The script definitely did need some more working through some more drafts maybe, because they also have a few ideas that end up getting thrown out there thematically, and they don't seem to be able to figure out what they want to do in the very end of the film. It feels kind of muddled, and things just kind of fall apart a little bit. I mean, when you're looking at the straight up events of what happens, you are understanding what you're seeing. Like, okay, it's pretty straightforward. But from a thematic standpoint, what they're trying to say with the film and where they want to go, it's not very clear, and it seems pretty jumbled, and it seems like maybe they had too many ideas and they didn't flesh them out well enough. But still, overall, I thought the film was pretty solid. The acting does range. For the most part, the acting is pretty good, and some people give really good performances. But there's like one or two people who's just kind of like, not the best, and they kind of stand apart in a bad way from the rest of the cast, unfortunately. This takes a lot of issues in the United States and uses them as points of contention amongst characters. It, like a lot of horror films, kind of is reflecting a lot of the societal ills that we have right now. And one of the main things being arguments that end up happening over certain societal issues that we're struggling with as a whole. And for that reason, it feels very real in certain ways, but obviously the setting of the environment that this story takes place in make it feel not real. So it's this kind of interesting thing where it's like, it feels very unreal, but it feels real. And then the fact that there's a lot of stuff that feels real makes the unreal feel like, well, maybe this could happen in the future, that type of thing. There's some dark humor that really works. It has to do with nonchalant behavior in the face of very unsettling things, which is typically what dark comedies do. So I kind of do view this, for the most part, as a dark comedy. I think those are the strongest points of the film, in my opinion, is when you're getting those dark comedy moments that actually are kind of funny, but you're also kind of like, oh, but that's kind of really messed up given the situation that we're in right here and what we're talking about in this scene. But I mean, those were my favorite parts of the film, honestly. And there's one character in particular. Shout out to the actor Enrico Colantoni, who did a really good job in their role. It was the most fun performance in the film. Part of that is because of the way that the character's actually written, and the other part, the bigger part, is how Enrico Colantoni played that character. It seemed like he had a really good time doing it, so that was awesome. Really enjoyed any time that character was on the screen. Those were the best parts of the film, in my opinion, because that's when the dark comedy's really going on. They do introduce an interesting wrinkle that really does get things moving a lot more with the film. For the most part, the pacing is pretty solid. I think in the second act of the film, they really are starting to slow down, though, unfortunately. Things pick up a little bit more at the end, but the beginning has really good pacing. The first portion, the first third of it, has really good pacing, and then it starts to slow down, and then it picks up a little bit more at the end, but not quite what it was in the beginning. So, yeah, which is really weird because typically the pacing in the beginning is really slow because they have to establish, the world, establish, what the backgrounds are of these characters, who these characters are, all that type of stuff. But they did that relatively quickly. When it boils down to what drives the film, it's not anything new, but it's done decently for the most part, and I think that's where this is watchable. Like the world that it's setting it in, and the kind of like concept of the euthanasia situation of enlisting and everything is more unique, but at the core, and I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but at the core of what this film is, you've probably seen a lot of films like this. And I have seen a lot of films like this. So the question is, how does it really set itself apart? The answer is it doesn't a whole lot, except for the dark comedy aspect of it that I was saying I like so much. So yeah. It feels like it's trying to build to something, but just can't quite figure out what it wants to build to. So in the end, is it a satisfying ending? I don't think so. I think it kind of ends in a big kind of bleh. But overall, I did enjoy my time with it. So out of 5 stars, half stars in play, I'm going to give it a solid 3-star rating. This is a good first feature film for Caitlin Cronenberg, and I'd be very interested to see where she goes from here. So now I'm going to end up getting to, first, Please subscribe to my channel if you want to support me. Thumbs up on this video and all my videos if you want to help me with that YouTube algorithm, and notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos. That said, now I'm going to get into some of the thematic stuff, so if you don't want to hear that, sign off. This goes hard at the cold and disgusting way that corporations operate in the United States and how their existence runs in opposition to the interests of humanity. And just humanity in general. If you can't tell how I feel about corporations, capitalism, the variety of capitalism that we have grown to in our country is terrible. It destroys a lot. There's a great quote from this documentary from early 2000s, maybe, called "The Corporation," and it is, the problem with corporations is there is no body to incarcerate and there is no soul to save. And I fully agree with that, and that is front and center in this film. It deals heavily in familial relationship issues, some of which I kind of identify with, of, people kind of feeling like, hey, we're blood related, but do I feel like I really know you all that much? One of those types of things. So, yeah, but I'm sure everyone has people in their family who that's the situation with. And then it just ends up becoming this thing where it's just like you get together with these people at times, but you're kind of like, it's like one time a year, and it's like, why are we doing this? And we know why in the instance of this film. So anyway, that's everything I have to say about Humane. Go ahead and put some comments down there. We can talk spoilers in the comments if you want to. But regardless, thank you for your time to watch this. And until next time, keep it brutal.